Welcome back to All About America's Team, and we are here again for the fifth straight, for the fifth time with the Cowboys victory. My name's Ray Nickens, joined with, as always,
Owen DeChico.
and we are here celebrating, or at least I am celebrating, another successful prediction. My man Owen is now 1-6. Not a great showing. That's what happens when you pick against the Cowboys. Shockingly, um, you you go 1-6. But anyway, we have a lot to talk about today. We'll be breaking down the Cowboys and the Lions matchup yesterday. Dak Prescott returned to the starting lineup, and we'll have a lot to talk about regarding his performance as well as how the offense looked overall. As well, go into some quick quick takes on like the MVP of the game, who was the least valuable player, some game changing plays, all that fun stuff. But um, as always, to start, Owen, do you have any news or breaking news after yesterday's game?
Well, great intro, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Um, the only thing that I wanted to say was Jordan Lewis, our nickel cornerback, after the interception that he had off of Jared Goff, he tore his foot, something in his foot, and we all saw him kind of get up very slow and needed help getting off. And people were kind of thinking that he was going to be back at some point in time, but as of right now, it's season ending. Who knows, depending on his recovery and everything like that. But that will lead, and people were kind of trying to figure out how Dallas was going to make up for this loss, whether they were going to put Anthony Brown in the slot and then put Kelvin Joseph on the outside. But what they plan on doing, as far as I know, is put um, Dayron Bland in the slot so that Anthony Brown can keep his outside position, which I think is a pretty good idea. Bland did play the outside. Bland did play in the slot in the week one or the beginning of the season when Jordan Lewis was out. So I think it'll be good. I think it'll be a seamless transition, and hopefully he can. And he did have an interception. He has an interception already, so hopefully he will have some further success now that he's back in the lineup.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate to see Jordan Lewis get hurt because he was having a very good season in the slot for the Cowboys in the secondary and is a essential piece in the secondary. So hopefully it will be a next man up type of thing where Bland will come in and have similar or even maybe better success. But as of right now, there's a little uncertainty back there. But um, the great thing about this scenario is Cowboys defense is just so solidified in every aspect of their defense. So even if their secondary does take a step back, the front seven should be able to hide most of those discrepancies. But yeah,
So
any other late thoughts or news or comments? No.
I don't think so. I think that it was a relatively clean game health wise. Um, Hopefully we'll see Neville Gallimore back. He did have a wrist injury, so hopefully we'll see him back against the Bears. And just hoping for a healthy week injury report wise.
Yeah, for sure. But let's let's kind of go into just some quick takes, as Owen and I would call them. Just Owen, I'll let you go first. Just kind of go down the line. You can hit all of them at once or as many as you want. But Owen, take it away from the top. Who was your MVP of yesterday's afternoon game that I viewed as a late evening game?
I think that it was. I personally am going to do a split between two players, and I know this is kind of a something that's not liked, but mine are between Micah Parsons and Sam Williams, the rookie from Ole Miss. Those are two players that I think were the most valuable to Dallas winning. And obviously, Michael Parsons had more of an effect based off of his snap count being higher and things, and obviously the play that is in Ray's background saving the game, which I'll get into a little bit later. My least valuable player, I have Anthony Brown. I remember, and I'm sure Ray knows as well because he watched the game later than I did. It was like 3rd and 15, 3rd and 16, and Anthony Brown was like 20 yards back and just was sleeping in coverage. And then the Lions got a first down on a third and 15. And sure, you can call that like Dan Quinn with his play coverage, but it would have been nice to see less cushion. My best play of the game, in my opinion, is the play that Ray has, which was the Micah Parsons tackling the tight end, I believe, on the 1 yard line, which then led to the DeMarcus Lawrence fumble. So best play is either between those two. Those two, I think, really moved the game in Dallas's favor. And DeMarcus Lawrence, that's people always say, well, he's not a big sack guy, but stuff that he does like that and like basically takes a game over is great to see. And then my least favorite play of the game, I would assume would be, or I think would be the Anthony Brown 3rd and 15, like lost in coverage. And I'm sure that I'll think of other ones, or like in the red zone and Kellen Moore calls a reverse, just a bunch of funny stuff. But Ray, do you have any comments, or do you just want to get into your own up and down?
Yeah, I did not really. The only time I saw Sam Williams on my screen, there was a penalty that negated whatever he did. So I don't really have much to comment in regards to Sam Williams.
He did have 2 sacks, and he had a forced fumble.
He had 2 sacks and a forced fumble.
Remember, because he hit the ball out of the quarterback, and then he
yes,
ran
at the end
in the
of
fourth
the game.
quarter. Yes,
I was mostly by that time I was asleep.
He only had like 15-ish snaps he played, so he made the most. And I'll read you the stat line right now so that you don't think I'm making stuff up. He tweeted it out that there were like 16 snaps. He had a bunch of. Let me see if I can pull it up right now. Sam Williams got into it with Skip Bayless, which was pretty funny. Yeah, okay, so he had 2 sacks, 3 tackles, 1 forced fumble, and 1 fumble recovery on 12 reps. And then Skip Bayless tweeted out yesterday, I questioned the Sam Williams pick in the 2nd round because he didn't flash enough for me at Ole Miss, but he sure has started flashing as a Dallas Cowboy pass rusher. Congrats, Will McClay. And then Sam said, I love Twitter.
Huh. Interesting. I don't know why he was coming back at Mr. Skip, and Skip was hyping him up. For once in his life, Skip was admitting that he was wrong.
No, just because he led all of football in sacks. So if you don't see him flash, he led all of college football in sacks. So it just doesn't make any sense that he would say something like that. He definitely had flaws in his game, but you don't luck into leading all of college in sacks.
Well, hopefully he gets more playing time if he is, because there are some people who I think should lose playing time. Dorrance Armstrong.
Like who?
For Sam Williams. If he's going
Dorrance Armstrong?
Yeah.
He's 2nd in the league in sacks.
Well, if Sam Williams loves Twitter so much, then he should be playing more than Dorrance Armstrong. Obviously, the right people are playing, and
he's also a rookie.
So there are a lot of rookies who are Micah Parsons was a rookie last year.
They didn't have this type of depth at the end with him, with when Micah came here.
But
And Micah in the beginning of his career was just an off-ball linebacker until DeMarcus Lawrence got hurt, and then they kind of had to put him down there.
Micah Parsons was a game changer his first snap.
No, I know, but I'm just saying that from what you said about like he should play, he wasn't coming off the edge in the beginning of his in the Tampa game. He didn't start going off the edge until week 2 when DeMarcus Lawrence was hurt because they had depth at the end and they didn't really know how to use Micah yet. So now with Sam Williams, who was already deep on the depth chart because they brought in guys like Dante Fowler, they re-signed Dorrance Armstrong. They have a healthy DeMarcus Lawrence. They had like you and I said, their front seven is very deep, and it's quite common for a rookie to have to work their way up. So he's got 16 snaps, and he made the most of it. So I'd assume that he would play more, but it's not. I think that it would be poor coaching if they brought Sam Williams in and was like, hey, you know what? Here's 50 snaps. And then Dorrance Armstrong, who you re-signed for 3 years, is like, what happened? Because he's been playing well. And as of right now, he has 6 sacks. And Randy Gregory, in his several years with Dallas, his career high was 6 sacks. So he's already tied his career high, and we're not even halfway through the season yet. Or we might be halfway. No, not halfway through the season yet.
So my question to you is, when did Sam Williams produce his 2 sacks and forced fumble?
Late in the game when he got all of his snaps. He only had 13
how
snaps.
How can he be your MVP of the game when the game was 24-6 when he generated all of his plays?
It wasn't 24-6.
Or
it was in the if from what I can remember, it was not they scored their 14 points due to the forced fumbles in the end, because Dak only threw a touchdown because of the interception to Jordan Lewis, I believe, or the fumble. So it was 10-6 going into the fourth quarter, and then you had 2.
So it was 17-6 when he sacked Jared Goff and forced the fumble. So it was a 2-score game. And then
it put the game away. And he did what he needed to do.
How much time was left in the football game? 2 minutes. So they were down 2 scores with 2 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
And then
he put the game away.
I think the game was already over, but
fine.
I will let him co MVP with the real MVP of the game, who impacted the game from the first snap to the last snap.
And if Sam Williams hopefully gets more snaps, then he'll do that. But also, as you and I both heard plenty times last night, the Lions have one of the best tackle duos in the league. And Sam Williams was beating Penei Sewell, who was drafted a lot higher than Sam Williams was. So for Sam Williams, who didn't play all that much, to go up against Penei Sewell, who is one of the best right tackles in the league, and just beat him, it's something that is great to see. Now, is he like the best pass rusher on the team? No, but it's good that someone who's like a second or third string guy you can throw in there, and it keeps everyone fresh, and he can go have 2 sacks, a forced fumble, and have the first sack of his career, and then follow it up in the late game and basically win the game. So did he lead to the overall success of the game? No, but I was impressed with his performance, and I wanted to bring it up because of you, especially how you were not a fan of the pick, and I like to be like, hey, here's a guy that you didn't like all that much that's actually doing something.
Well, my point is, he can play well in a small spurts, but in my opinion, I would prefer our top two draft picks to be getting significant playing time and making significant impacts. Um, and I mean Tyler Smith, he's played from the first snap um, of the season throughout this game, so he's gotten a lot of playing time. So that's what I want to see. That's what I like to see. Jalen Tolbert, third round, has seen minimal playing time. That is not what I want to see. And then Sam Williams is in and out of the game. He's not. He's in the game, so he's not in the game for a significant portion of the time that I'm missing him when he does get into the game. And by the time I'm half asleep at 1 a.m. in the morning in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes left, he finally gets a sack and I completely miss it. So my point is, I'm glad he's playing well and I'm glad he made big plays. But my thing is, if you're not playing when you said you only had 15, 14, 15 snaps?
He had 15 or less. I think he tweeted that he had 12.
Okay, so he had 12 snaps in the game, and most of those snaps came in late in the fourth quarter when they were up 2 scores, I assume. I know I saw him in like the early third quarter where he got a pressure, but they called it offsides. I think he was like offsides or something, or that it like negated the sack or fumble or whatever it was. But by the end of the year, I'd like to see him cut into some people's playing time, just considering how high of a draft pick that he was. And there are plenty of draft picks in the second round that are playing significant time and contributing. That I want to see progression and not just him getting a sack late in the fourth quarter when the team is up 2 scores. That's just my whole sense. I just wanted to play a little bit more.
Can I comment on yours and then you can go into your top everything?
Yes.
So in the offseason, this as of right now is Dallas's end room. DeMarcus Lawrence, Dorrance Armstrong, Williams, obviously, Chauncey Golston, Terrell Basham, and Dante Fowler. All of those guys may not be older, well, because Sam Williams is 23. I don't know how old Chauncey Golston is, but all of those guys are older than him in age and in experience. I don't, in my opinion, I would rather you put the guy in there and him work. You brought in Dante Fowler. Terrell Basham hasn't played since week 1 because he's had a hamstring injury. And as soon as those guys go in, Dante Fowler's played well. Terrell Basham has played well at times. Obviously not this year because he's been hurt, but last year he had a few showings. And Sam Williams, obviously, he's had to get in his stride because he did have faults in his game and he wasn't a complete player. But if he were to play a full game, you'd like to see that, but I just don't really know where he would play. Because if you have Micah Parsons playing end, Sam Williams is not playing over DeMarcus Lawrence, Dorrance Armstrong, or Micah Parsons. And I think you would agree with that. Yeah. And if those are your 3 ends, then he's going to have to fight for some playing time. And Dan Quinn likes to keep the room fresh and doesn't want to have guys playing for the full 60 snaps. So when Sam Williams goes in there, whether it's a 1-score game or a 4-score game, the Lions did not change their offensive tackles or their line. It was the same. No one was injured. So yeah, you could say that the offensive line could be like tired or whatever, but it's a top 5 offensive tackle going up against a 2nd-round pick who hasn't really played all that much and did what he was supposed to do. Because I know that we're a lot happier now, but if he went in there and did nothing and got abused for 12 snaps, then that'd be an issue. But he did what he was supposed to do. And next week, going up against one of the worst offensive lines in the league, I hope that he would have more playing time, and we will go from there. But that is just how I feel on the matter.
So that that sums up what I was trying to say is I'm glad he's making plays, but the fact that he's only getting 12 snaps can be two of the same thing. One, the room is very deep, but two, he's not beating people out. So when Dante Fowler came in, we both I assume viewed it as a waste of a pick considering that he's been below to average at his position for multiple years in Atlanta. So um he had I assume Sam Williams had every opportunity to move up the depth chart in the offseason during training camp. And the fact that Basham is coming back, if Basham takes away more Sam Williams snaps, that tells me that he's not beating people out in practice and he's not showing enough growth to where he deserves more playing time. The fact that he's getting playing time late in the game when like you can say that it put the game away or not, but when you're up 2 scores with 2 minutes left, you're basically not you're trying to nothing cheap, nothing deep, and you at that point you can get a couple fresh bodies in, bring in some more people who might not see a lot of playing time in the interior, maybe not in the secondary, but in the interior. So he's getting playing time because it's late in the game. They're up 2 scores. They want fresh bodies in to rush the passer, stuff like that. But um, all I'm saying is I would like him. I would like to see him progress throughout the year to where he is cutting into people's playing time and not where when people are coming back he's losing playing time because that's basically what it sounds like is that we're getting these two people back. He's going to move down the depth chart, and it's more of like he's having to make the most of what he gets instead of stealing time. He's making the most of the time, and it's not coming in the significant parts of the game where they're down 6-3 or up 10-6 or up 13-6. It's more of a 2 score game. 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. All of a sudden, he's in the backfield and sacking Jared Goff. But it is nice that he beat Penei Sewell. That is a good. That you can put that on his frame or pin tweet it on the Twitter. I beat the top 5 draft pick from last year in a one-on-one and sacked Jared Goff. But I want to see him as a second-round pick, early second-round pick, cut in some people's time
Mid second.
as the team as the season progresses because we have
May I ask
10 more weeks.
May I ask one question, then you can move on?
Yes, sure.
Who would you like to see him take snaps away from? Because he's not taking away snaps from Micah.
No, of
He's
course
not
not.
taking away from DeMarcus Lawrence. He's not taking away from Dorrance. So the only guy they'd be able to take away from is Dante. And as of right now, I don't know how accurate the ESPN depth chart is, but Sam Williams is the second team and Dante is the third team.
Well,
and
it
I
doesn't
think the
seem
reason
very
why,
well, if Dante's playing more snaps, then I don't think that would be.
well, yeah, I don't know what it would mean, but so I'd assume you'd want him to take snaps away from Dante, and hopefully that does happen. But Dante Fowler or Dan Quinn did draft Dante Fowler, and the only person that I think Dante said is really been able to untap his potential is Dan Quinn. And obviously, if I had like a full snap breakdown in front of me, then we could talk about that. But hopefully, I'd assume that Dante Fowler is the one that you'd like to see him take snaps from.
I would like him to take snaps from anybody that, if he is progressing and making plays, then I would like him to take snaps away from anybody who is starting right now. Not Micah, because you're not taking snaps from Micah. But
Or Dorrance.
if they want, no, I mean if he. So the thing with Dorrance is we had a guy, Aldon Smith, who had a quick start early on in the year and faded. If we could see that from Dorrance Armstrong, and Sam Williams is playing well, sure, he could cut into his snaps, or even DeMarcus Lawrence if Sam Williams is proving that he's playing well, then cut into DeMarcus Lawrence snaps. Like, because you can do the fresh body stuff like that too, and having him play 20-25 snaps and subbing in for D-Lard or Sam Williams on like in situational plays, maybe on like third and longs or second and meet, whatever you want to do. But I want to see him. I don't want to see him taking away snaps from Basham or Dante Fowler. I want to see to show that he is progressing as a player, long term player, because I assume they drafted him to be a long term starting defensive end. So to show me that he's progressing towards that ultimate goal, I'd like to see him cut into people that matter.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the same thing for Tolbert. He had injuries in off season and all that, and obviously we all had questions about what this wide receiver room is going to look like. But with Gallup back, James Washington's going to come back, and we'll see how that plays out. Noah Brown has earned a spot in like the 6 years that he's been here. CeeDee Lamb, obviously. So it's going to be an uphill battle for Tolbert. But also the good thing about this is that if Tolbert does sit for the most of this first year, doesn't mean that the pick's a waste. It just means that either they wanted to sit him to let him gain experience. He did obviously was not really able to take part in most of the beginning of the season or training camp and stuff because he was injured. But honestly, whatever plan they have with him, I'm looking forward to seeing what it is, and hopefully both players get to play more as the season goes on.
Yeah. I'll just go right into my stuff because Jalen Tolbert does not really deserve me talking about him because he's out of sight, out of mind until a future date when he does play. But my MVP of the game is Micah Parsons because he generated a lot of positive plays for the defense. He was in the backfield plenty of times, made that great tackle on the tight end. I thought it might have been a touchdown. I'm not entirely sure why they didn't review it, but they didn't, and it led to a fumble. But at that point, he made the game saving play. But Micah Parsons, really every game, he's the best player on the field on the defense, and he's very consistent in doing that. So he was my MVP. My least valuable player is going to be. This is a tough one because I really have no idea. Nobody really did anything shockingly bad.
So you don't have to have one then.
My least valuable player.
It's not controversial.
I'll come back to that one. Game-changing play is I'm gonna go with the Diggs interception. The reason why is because it was not an interception, and it should have been reviewed, and he dropped it. But they did not review it, and they got you go look at the replay and tell me.
No, I know. It was not a clean catch.
And I don't really the throw was terrible, so it deserved to be intercepted. But if that's dropped, the Lions still have the ball. I believe they were about at the Cowboy at their 40, but they were moving the ball very well. They were running the ball all over Dallas. Once again, the Dallas Cowboys run defense is terrible. I don't know how you can have so many bodies and still manage to get blown backward and not being able to stop the run. And if DeAndre Swift was in the game, then it would have been even worse. But they were able to. Okay, my least valuable player, I figured it out. My least valuable player is the entire front four for getting absolutely embarrassed when it came to running the football.
So how is your most valuable player Micah? But then Micah's top he's an end, so he's your most valuable.
Micah is a linebacker. He is a linebacker. DeMarcus Ware was listed as an outside linebacker who rushed off the edge. Micah Parsons is the exact same thing. He's not a defensive lineman. He plays linebacker.
I'm just messing with you.
Well, you can mess with me, and then I shut it down with actual facts. But yeah, and honestly, Micah Parsons is not great at stopping the run either. or at least he's not good at stopping the inside run. Inside runs, he's not great at. Outside, he does decent, but he can't really stop an interior run when he's coming off the edge. But anyway, yeah. So if that play kind of turned the game around, because if they don't get that intercept, that was the first drive coming out of the second half. Cowboys took the ball first, which I don't really understand why they did that, but it doesn't really matter because they won anyway. But Lions got the ball to start the second half, and immediately Goff throws an interception, and the Cowboys take the ball and immediately score a touchdown, and that took the lead, and they never lost the lead from that point on. So the game changing play was that fluky half interception. And then worst play, the worst play has to be Dak's throw to Schultz in the end zone. That was so behind him and so underthrown that it bounced off the corner's helmet or back or shoulder pad, and it was called an pass interference. And
Well, it was.
The reason why there was a pass interference was the throw was so terrible, and Noah Brown had to stop and go back for the football, and then the corner ran into him, and that caused the flag. If the corner was even had his head turned sideways, he would have turned around and intercepted the ball because it bounced off his shoulder pad, not shoulder pad, the back of his shoulder pads. So the throw was behind him and underthrown, and it should have been an interception. But the fact that it was so bad, the corner wasn't even looking, or safe. I don't even know if it was a corner, the safety, or even a linebacker. But it was so underthrown that Noah Brown had to come back to the ball, and that caused the PI. So that to me was the worst play of the game. The worst sequence of plays was, as you said, when the Cowboys corners were lined up 15 to 20 yards in front of the wide receivers, and it still baffles me as to why they were doing that. It got him one time as the Anthony Brown play, but the next third and long, Jordan Lewis baited Jared Goff on that same exact route and got the interception. So in that sequence, it worked. But if I'm a play caller, I would not run 15-yard curls. I'd run 6-7 yard curls and get the ball to the receiver, and then all he has to do, as I was saying, is make that corner miss, and all of a sudden they're running 30 yards down the field. So that's what I would have done. I'm not an offensive coordinator, but that's what I would have done. But
I'll have to look at that play, because that's not what I obviously different. You and I can see two different things at the same time, and just like that CeeDee Lamb throw, I was in the wrong on that. I will have to look at that after this, because that is not what I saw while watching it. But you have the luxury of pausing and replaying, and I'm watching it 1,000 times. I will have to do the same and see if I agree or not.
Well, I'm very confident that you will end up agreeing with me, because it literally, I kid you not, bounced off the back of his shoulder pads.
Well, I would assume that if the linebacker committed pass interference, then there was no window to be thrown at. And I'm sure any, as you put it, competent quarterback, if they see that their
the pass interference happened after the ball was in the air. It wasn't before the ball was in the air. It was after the ball was in the air. And it was caused by Noah Brown stopping his route, which the ball should have been placed in the corner of the end zone in front of him. And the ball was underthrown, so he had to stop his route and jump back towards the ball. And because of that, the corner safety / linebacker ran into him, caused the pass interference, and then the ball bounced off the player's back of his shoulder pad. that is my description. But you can, as you said, you can go back and look at it and see what you think.
Okay.
And then what would I want them to do differently? Run the ball, because the Cowboys at halftime had thrown the ball 14 times and ran it 12 times, and if and Dak ended up with 25 passes to the 32 runs or whatever it was. But when the Cowboys ran the ball more in the second half, the offense looked a lot better, and they scored 21 points in the second half to the 3 points in the first half. So I think at times there was especially one play in the second one drive in the second quarter where they threw the ball 4 straight times, and the first two, I actually have it in my notes that so the first pass was incomplete to CeeDee Lamb, incomplete to Michael Gallup was the second pass, complete to Lamb on the third pass, and then incomplete to Noah Brown on the sideline. And then the very next play, they gave it to Zeke on like a speed option or a delayed option, and he ran it for 15 plus yards, and they got the first down. So
Zeke looked good.
I'd like to see them run the ball in that situation with the quarterback coming back, first game back in 5-6 weeks, especially on the Lions defense, who you were getting basically anything you wanted, running in between the tackles or outside the tackles with Tony Pollard. I'd like to see them run a lot more, and then just play action off of those runs, because there were so many times when they'd get a first down on a run and they'd come out in shotgun and Dak would snap the ball and not even play action. If I would like to see him more under center running bootlegs off of play action, off the successful run game, that probably would have opened up the passing game a little bit more. But as I said before, I don't call plays for a living, so I really probably have no idea what I'm talking about. But
well, funny enough, you bring that up, because Dak went 11 for 13 for 121 yards and a TD with play action versus Detroit, meaning Dak used play action on 50% of his dropbacks. Using PA, his PA usage has hovered around 25% in previous seasons. And this is an indication that Cowboys will continue to use play action frequently. It's a very good thing, and that's from John Owning, who I believe works for Pro Football Focus. But obviously, those are not Pro Football Focus things; they're just stats. So to go based off of your play action, yes. Now I have a question for you whenever you are done with your statement.
yeah, well, I'm glad they used the play action and it was working. My one thing is I want to see them do it from under center a little bit more. They were doing a lot of play action from shotgun. I know the NFL is transitioning more to a college-based offense where they're lining up in pistol or shotgun a lot more frequently. But the Cowboys, they run so many running plays from under center that it just adds a little bit more of that, kind of what I was talking about a couple weeks earlier when Cooper Rush was in there and talking about how they were scheming. It hides a lot more of your passing plays if you're running passing from the same formation as you would have run. So I'm glad the play action was working. It should have been working because of how dominant they were running the football against the Lions. Just if they were to add that under center aspect as well, I think it would really improve the offense, especially since the offense was able to accumulate 3 points in the first half, and Dak finally threw his first touchdown pass, and it took him 8 quarters of play to get that touchdown pass, and 6 quarters of him playing to get the first touchdown drive. So they could, but I'll kind of get into that a little bit later. But yes, what is your question?
So, in the future, how many times do you want Dak to throw the ball per game? Like attempts, not completions. Because you said that from what I got from you was that 25 was too much. So how many like you want to see him throw the ball 20, 15 times, 10 times, 0 times?
So 25 is actually a good number. But what I was getting at was he threw the ball a lot less in the second, or not a lot less, because it got to that. 24, 25. But they made it an emphasis to run the football a lot more in the second half. So I would just, I mean, sure, Dak's going to play better as he gets more snaps. I think it's impossible to expect him to hover around the 20 to 25 range every game. I'd say I'd like to see him throw, with how good their running game has been for a considerable amount of the season. I'd like to see him throw from 25 to 30 times a game.
Okay.
Because they generate around 60 to 65 plays of on offense. So I'd like to see him around that 50-50 run pass.
Okay.
And I don't see a scenario, because it's not 2008 anymore where they're throwing it 20 to 25 times a game. It's 2022 when they're throwing 40 to 50 times a game. So I'd like to see around that 30 pass attempts and 30 to 35 running attempts would be nice.
Well, just a few points of emphasis that I wanted to bring in before anything else that Ray needed to say. I think that this is probably the most abysmal game from Dallas's offensive tackles. Tyler Smith didn't look all that great at times. Aiden Hutchinson, he had a day. Tyron Steele did not play all that well, and hopefully that was just a one game type of thing, and hopefully they can move on. But it was disheartening to see the Lions' only good pass rusher beat both of them, and obviously he was the number one overall pick. So I probably should have mentioned that in the intro episode that we did last week. But I would like to see for next week against Robert Quinn, who did have 18.5 sacks last year. I would like to see Tyler Smith have a bounce back game against him, as well as Steele. I wanted to mention that earlier, but I did not. Also, I think Zeke, this is probably the most, been playing really well recently. At least I think. Let's see him do the hurdle. Apparently, Dak mentioned that Zeke was practicing a hurdle in practice, and Dak said that he knew he was going to get one, and he did. So he looked like rookies. He looked like the rookie version of himself. Tony Pollard looked really good. Hopefully Dallas re-signs Tony Pollard, because if they only have Zeke next year, then who knows what's going to happen with this running back room. But I would like to see Tony Pollard back. I would like to see more of the Dallas's two rookie tight ends, Hendershot and Ferguson, more often, especially with Fultz with his knee injury and on a franchise tag. And what else? Just Trayvon Diggs. The interception was on a double move, and you could say that their wide receiver room was pretty thin because Amon-Ra went down. But regardless,
they also did not have DJ Chark.
No, they did not. Didn't he transition to tight end or something like that though?
No.
That's someone else. But regardless, it was still a double move, and he played pretty well. He only allowed one catch for like 6 yards last night or yesterday. So good for you, Mr. Diggs. Also, one thing I want to mention about Diggs, and then I know I've talked, so you can say it. I think that one thing that I really wanted to see Trayvon improve with, besides his coverage ability, was his tackling ability. He would just arm tackle the heck out of everyone. And I think this year his tackling ability has gotten a lot better. For just specific plays, you can look at the Cincinnati game where he basically won the game for Dallas. Just in simple running, when they run to the outside, he's tackling like a football player should be, not like a cornerback where they're just using their arms to tackle. So apparently, I don't want to jinx anything, but from a stat that I saw, every tackle that he's been in the area to make, he's made. He has not missed a tackle, and that's pretty good for a cornerback. So hopefully he continues his success, and just I'm glad that the interception numbers are down because that means that he's not really getting targeted as much. And by obviously his worst game of the year was the Rams game, but since then he has bounced back. And next week, I doubt he's going to go up against Darnell Mooney. So we're not, and then against the Packers, they don't really have great wide receivers, and I doubt Diggs is going to go against them or their top one. So, it'll hopefully for the next few weeks he can continue this streak against lesser talent. Now with me just saying that, he'll get burned next week, but
No, I do think that Diggs has looked a lot better in coverage. I mean, they're the one his early pass breakup.
Yeah.
I thought initially he was a tad bit early, and they could have thrown a flag. It was so bang bang that I would not have wanted a flag to be thrown there. It was just on initial replay. It looked like he might have gotten their hair early, but overall he has been playing a lot better in coverage. He's not getting embarrassed like there were some points last year where he was literally getting embarrassed in between interceptions that were kind of swept under the rug because of the interception success. But I mean, he's still generating takeaways, and while also limiting wide receivers to success. I'd like to see him on Darnell Mooney, considering that I don't think Darnell Mooney is that good. But considering he's their wide receiver one, I think it would be a great opportunity to see Diggs play against Darnell Mooney for a significant amount of time, just to see how he would do in that situation. But knowing the Cowboys, as you said, scheme, they're going to put Anthony Brown on Darnell Mooney, and Diggs is going to follow the unknown wide receiver who on the opposite side of Mooney. So we'll just see how that goes. But just a quick point of order. I know we are running very slim on time. 12:30 is coming very quickly, but just a quick point. I just kind of wanted to get into a little bit of the offense and what I thought overall, or my overall takeaway of the game. It sounded like, or it appeared to me, based on what I was seeing, was that the Lions defense played so much harder than the Cowboys offense for the entirety of the game, and it wasn't even close. The Cowboys offense should not have had any issue, especially in how they were running the football. Should not have had any issue with getting touchdowns in the first half. The problem was the receivers did not look like they were getting separation or getting open. Dak missed plenty. Dak missed some throws early on. The first drive, he overshot Noah Brown. That could have been a big play. He threw the ball into triple coverage to CD. That wasn't very good. I'm not going to really blame him for not throwing for an interception that didn't happen. It was just the wrong read. But I mean, the offense did pick up in the second half after turnovers forced by the defense. But I think my takeaway was if the Lions had some of their other skill positions, if St. Brown had not gone down, if Swift was playing, I think this game could have been a little bit tighter. Might have seen the Lions score a touchdown. They, for the second week in a row, did not score a touchdown on offense. We might have seen a touchdown from the Lions. That would have made the game a little bit tighter late in the game. But I mean, the offense did not play well. It did not look very much different from the offense we've seen the last 4 or 5 weeks. In some cases, it looked worse. But I think that this was the perfect game for that to happen, considering it was playing against the worst defense in football. I have some numbers here. in regards to that, they are they get up 34 points a game, worst in the league, 428 yards a game, worst in the league. So the Cowboys had one of their worst offensive showings, first half showings of the year, not scoring a touchdown, accumulating 3 points. And then in the second half, they improved, got a quick touchdown early on off the turnover, and then 2 more touchdowns off of turnovers. So, just it's a pretty dreadful game for the offense, but there is a lot to build on going into the Bears game, who also have one of the worst defenses in the league. So, I think that these 2 games are going to be very important as to see where the offense is, because after that they have Green Bay, who, even though Green Bay is playing poorly, I do think that game is going to be a tough one. And then after that they have Minnesota. So by Minnesota, I expect the offense to be high flying, getting that around that 25 to 30 points a game, and just not just looking inept when throwing the football, because there were so many times last night when I was watching where they'd get a big run play from Pollard or Zeke. They'd be all the momentum, and then all of a sudden they'd run a pass play, and it would be an incomplete pass or a drop or a misfire or a penalty or something like that. And I'd just be like, why didn't you just call another inside zone play or an outside or an option run or whatever? Like, why even throw it there when you have all the momentum running the football and all that? So, I mean, that just kind of comes with getting your quarterback back and wanting him to get reps. But I thought that the Cowboys offense looked really, really pedestrian and really pathetic at times, and would like to see that fixed sooner rather than later.
No, I agree. I think that Dak, the throw to Noah Brown, was it a little high? Yeah, but if it hits both of your hands, you're probably supposed to come down with that. I think Dak probably would have had more yards if Noah Brown didn't do a somersault and fumble the ball. I guess that wouldn't have mattered, because I guess the yards still count. Who knows? He could have a touchdown there if he wanted to throw it. But funny enough, he said in a press conference that he didn't want to throw a touchdown today. He wanted to run the ball, and he said he wanted to win. He wanted to have the running game continue to do what they were doing, which is a selfless man. Yeah, the throws to triple coverage and double coverage were not great. I mentioned before on this podcast that every game he has one just throw that you're like, what in the world is this? And he had 2 of those yesterday. And even Tony Romo said, who obviously was a Cowboy, him and Dak met this past week, and Dak and Tony told him, like, Dak, like, you're probably gonna feel good this game, but you're not gonna feel great until next week, and like you mentioned, he had like an issue with cement shoes, as you call them, and Romo said you can't simulate that in practice, and when we haven't played in 5 weeks, it's gonna be difficult. Like, I would assume your internal clock's gonna be off a bit, but 4 weeks down the line, if Dak continues that, then obviously it's a long-term issue, not a hasn't played in 5 weeks issue. So personally,
I was even going to bring up the cement shoes. You did that for me. wasn't even going to say it.
But in my opinion, I think that it's only fair if we grade him like on next week, because he was efficient through. Like, he had a pretty good game. Obviously, 207 yards aren't great. And yeah, you could say that it was similar to Rush, but I do think that there were a lot of throws that Dak made that Rush can't make. Like the throw to CD in the beginning of the game that was like a perfect window. I saw like a bunch of tweets that were like, if Rush threw that, it's going back for 6. And obviously, I didn't get my opinion on the matter from that. I thought that it was funny. But I do think that the Dak had some pretty good throws, and it was good to see him back out there.
Yeah, well, the overall point was mainly on the offense as a whole, not necessarily the quarterback.
No, I know.
I will share. I mean, the longer the more reps and playing time that the quarterback gets, the more critical I will be.
Yes.
And I just think that there needs to be some improvement, especially against a team that is playing on a short week. The Bears played tonight. The Bears play tonight on the road, and then they have to travel to Dallas on the road again. So that defense is going to be playing on a short week. They're not going to have as much time to prepare. Travel days are going to come into it. So I'd like to see a performance that is much better than the performance we saw yesterday. And if it's similar and the Cowboys are winning once again 24-10 or 24-6, and the Bears don't score for the entirety of the second half and Cowboys get a late TD or whatnot, then there's going to be some problems and some cause for pause. But as of right now, it doesn't.
Line to be for next week. Like,
well,
I want like
I don't really care what the stat line is. I'm just saying I just would like the offense to be more efficient.
Okay.
If the stat line is 250 for 2 touchdowns and the touchdowns are coming in the first quarter, in the third quarter, whatnot, or just kind of then cool. I'm not taking a lot of substance in a touchdown on their last drive of the game to go up 3 scores after a turnover when there's really no stakes in the game whatsoever, other than you throwing your first touchdown pass in 8 quarters. So that just kind of situational scoring and just playing a little bit better, because I don't think Dak played bad, but he didn't play great. So they're just kind of get from that below average, which is I think what he put out there yesterday, to maybe above average. That would be kind of my jump that I'd like to see.
Do you think he played below average yesterday?
I think he played below average for his standards.
Okay. Well, completion percentage wise, which obviously I've mentioned before, I don't really understand all that much as like a stat that people hold in high regard. He did
most of it, because going off of just really quickly, his completion percentage came from mostly short, quick passes. On passes, the Cowboys only had 1 play over 20 yards.
He led the league in average air yards thrown yesterday in 10.2.
And most of them were incomplete.
No, I think air yards is based off of completions.
Well, they only had 1 play over 20 yards.
Okay, so I'm saying the average yards of him throwing the ball, so from like when the receiver caught it, was 10.2. Now, obviously, I could have a misunderstanding of what that metric means, but I do believe that that air yards is it's like catches. It's not just like I throw it for 50 yards and no one catches it and I have 50 air yards. But I could be wrong. But based off of like the advanced metrics, he had a pretty good game. Now, based off of what you could see, obviously it could be 2 different things. But could he have looked better? Yeah, but did he play below average? I don't think so.
So what do you think? How do you think he played? Do you think he played great?
I think in the beginning of the game, he was a little shaky, obviously getting his feet wet. But I think as the game went on, he played well. I think that the best drive of the game was when there were no penalties. And if this team does not shoot themselves in the foot, they can be pretty good. But these stupid penalties on offense.
Well, they're already 5-2, so they're pretty good right now.
I'm saying more efficient and more of like the 10, 15 plays that we're accustomed to for this team. Just because you're 5-2 doesn't mean that you're great. The Giants are 6-1, and I don't really think anyone respects them as a team.
I respect them as a team.
Oh,
they beat a lot of teams they beat the Ravens. They beat who else did they beat?
The Ravens have
Packers.
Dak also yards per completion was 8.28. So he threw every throw he had went for 8.28. Which is not Dink and Dak, in my opinion.
It's literally Dink and Dak, because you can. I'm okay. So my whole thing on like the metrics, I'm just like watching the game last night. There were a lot of throws that went for 5-6 yards to Dalton Schultz on a quick stop route. And he hit there boom, 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 boom. And then as soon as he started throwing it longer distances, they were behind players, they were short, they were wide.
What are you talking? I must have seen a different game. The only throws that I saw that were bad like that was the Noah Brown throw that was too high, and the passes in the triple coverage. I don't, and you can get the in the end zone pass interference. I didn't see any like up, down, left, right out of the view throws. But maybe I missed it, but I didn't. I mean, he only missed 6 throws. So if you mean to tell me that all 6 of those throws were in the dirt, then you can have it. But at 3, he had 2 throws. So 2 of his 6 throws, so 33% of his throws that were missed were into triple coverage. Missed one to Noah Brown. So that means that half of his incompletions were you can say whatever bad throws, but I didn't see any in the dirt under throws. But
I'm saying he. This isn't really important. I'm just saying he played below average to his standards as a QB. He didn't play terrible. He played better than Zach Wilson and Brett Ripien and Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady because they played like trash yesterday. But I'm saying that from his standard as a guy who throws for 300 plus and 4 touchdowns and what he would usually do against the worst defense in football, he played below average.
Okay.
And going 19 of 25 does not really matter to me when I was watching last night, and most of those throws were from the line of scrimmage to 8 yards down 4 to 8 to 10 yards down the field. Because I don't really consider a 10-yard completion to be a long throw. I consider a long throw to be 15 to 25 yards down the field.
Okay.
And throwing it 8 to 10 yards down the field does not really impress me doesn't impress me that much.
That's great, but if the defense is going to give you it, I'd rather him do that than throw up like Hail Marys and see, hey, Dig or hey, CeeDee Lamb, try to catch this 50 yards down. Because when he does that, you have commented on it negatively. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, I want you to throw for 300 yards, but then be like, I really want him to run the ball a lot. You have to, because if he did throw for 350, then they would not have run the ball for 130 yards. So you can say that you can only have it both ways. You can't say, Dak, you should have played better, but when they ran the ball a lot. If they don't run the ball a lot, then you're going to come here and be like, you know what, Dak, I don't care if you threw for 350. They got to run the ball more, be a more balanced offense. So that's just in my opinion how
you're missing sounds. What I'm saying. You're missing what I'm saying. I'm not campaigning for him to throw for 400, 500 yards a game. I'm saying from what I've seen, his great games and his best games where he's played very, very well, he has done this. Yesterday, he had a very ordinary, below average to average game, and it is all based on eye test. Because obviously, when you look at the numbers and you're like 19 to 25 for 207 and a touchdown, pretty solid game in first game back. But when you look at it, when you actually watch the game and look a little deeper, you're saying, oh, they scored 3 points in the first half. All of their touchdowns came off of turnovers. 2 of them were ran in by the running backs. No receiver on their team caught more than 5 passes. And their biggest yards was to CeeDee Lamb, who most of his yards came on one play. And they ran the ball. They had 2 rushers who rushed for less than 16 times and both generated over 50 yards rushing and accumulated for 139 yards from scrimmage. So what you're seeing is they didn't cash in early and they cashed in touchdowns off turnovers. So I'm saying overall, as the quarterback who has the ball in his hands, they didn't score a lot of points early, and then they scored points late. I'm saying he played below average because Dak Prescott, if he's playing great, he's cashing in touchdowns throughout the game. And yeah, he's cashing touchdowns throughout the game, and they're not waiting until the third quarter to score their first touchdown. So I'm saying that he played below average. On the stat sheet, he played fine. I'm saying overall, if you look a little deeper, below average, weren't scoring points, and like typical, starting off super slow, and then getting your numbers and your stats and your touchdowns late.
So to be a better game in your mind, to your eye test, what would you like him to throw? Because I asked it earlier and you said, "Oh, it doesn't matter to me." Well, if he were to throw the same exact thing for a full season, you would have an issue with it. So for it to be a good game to you, what would you like to see his stat line be? And then we can end the show.
For it to be a good game for me, the offense generates touchdowns throughout the game.
I'm asking his stat line. What do you want?
I already told you 250, 2 touchdowns.
Okay, then we'll see if he gets that next week.
But
if he doesn't get it next week, then obviously we'll talk about it, and you can talk negatively about him.
Yeah, my final point is there's a lot more to being the quarterback than just stats.
Yes.
So I'm saying I don't care that much about his stats. What I care about is the offense scoring touchdowns and being consistent. The offense at times looked worse than it's looked in the last 5 weeks. And it was because they weren't they weren't cashing in really positive drives, because a lot of their drives were positive. But then they'd stall because of, like you said, penalties, or they'd start getting pass happy or stuff like that. And that's why I'm saying he played below average, because the offense was not producing, and sometimes it was his fault, sometimes it was penalties or whatnot or all that. But for him to look better, and I'm trying, and that's why I said I'm throwing his stats out the window, because it's his first game back. So I'm judging him these first few games based off how the offense operates under him at quarterback. And for most of the game, the offense was pretty pedestrian. And it took until later on in the game for them to get some points on the board. So that's where the below average to average is coming from. For him to elevate to above average to great, the offense starts firing. They're scoring more closer to their average of last year. And then all of a sudden you're looking at this team and you're going, damn, they're scoring 30 points a game and giving up 10 points a game. This team is really good and really has a chance to win.
I agree.
But at this point, you're looking at this game and you're like, dang, they only scored 3 points in the first half. And for most of the game, we're up 10-6 until later in the third quarter. That's a recipe for disaster if you're playing someone like the Chiefs, the 49ers, the
49ers didn't look all that great last week either. Or sorry, yesterday either. Jimmy G did not have a good game at all.
We both expect them to look a lot more formidable as Christian McCaffrey gets more reps and playing.
Yeah.
So you're like scoring 10 points in 3 quarters is a recipe for disaster against us. Chiefs, Bills, 49ers in 2-3 weeks, Eagles. Who else is playing decent in this?
The Giants.
Yeah.
That's basically all it is out of the East, and the Dallas already beat the Giants, and I'm sure that they would probably beat. I think the game would be a lot closer if it was like this. If they played the Eagles again when they play them in 2 months or 2 months to the day.
Yeah, basically, in conclusion, they scoring 10 points in 3 quarters against the top teams of the NFL is a recipe for disaster. So I'd like to see him elevate the offense, because he is a type of caliber player that elevates offenses. That's why he's paid the big bucks, to elevate the offense. So I'd like to see him in the next couple weeks before the Vikings game elevate the offense to a place where they're not necessarily blowing teams out, but they're winning comfortably.
It looks like a lot of quarterbacks out there are not elevating their team.
And they are not Dak Prescott. If we were a Packers show or a
I'm just
Broncos show,
agreeing and saying that there are a lot of other. I'm just adding on to your point by saying there's a lot of other room for improvement around the league, and as the season goes on, everyone will improve.
Yes, when Geno Smith is out playing 3 Hall of Fame quarterbacks, then there is a huge problem.
Well, when you have no expectations, it leads to success.
Exactly.
And also when your division is awful, it leads to success.
What a great way to end the show.
Really is. Just Geno Smith, here's your MVP trophy. And here's a contract for like 4 years for $100 million. Probably more than that.
Yeah, well, this is a great place to end. I'm sure you're gonna have to teleport to class at this point.
Oh yeah.
So we'll just end it off really quickly. I was back on Twitter for last game in spurts, so be sure to check out the Twitter for next week. Maybe I'll post a tweet tonight during the game against the Bears, but be looking out for us on Friday for us to do our pregame for the Bears game, and you can find Twitter at all About America's Team, capital P, capital C. But thanks for watching, guys. Owen, thanks for being here on this great Monday, and I'll see you on Friday. All right, go Cowboys.
Have a good
everyone.
week, y'all. Go Cowboys.